This video is sponsored by CuriosityStream. Hey, welcome to 12 Tone. Music has lots of different scales, but as any music theorist could tell you, there's no best scale, no perfect scale for every situation. The right scale to use will always depend on what you're trying to do, but what if we look the other direction? Sure, there's no truly perfect scale, but is there a least perfect one? Well, yeah, kinda. It depends. So I suppose I should define my terms here because I'm actually using perfect in a pretty specific technical way. I'm talking about the presence of perfect intervals. These are intervals defined by really simple frequency ratios, and they form the basis of the Western idea of consonants. They come in three main flavors: the perfect octave, the perfect fifth, and the perfect fourth, so when I ask for the least perfect scale, what I'm really looking for is the scale that includes as few of these as possible. Or actually, let's make things simpler. We're not going to worry about octaves. Most Western scales are based on what's called octave equivalency anyway, which means that notes an octave apart are considered effectively the same note, so this and this are both G sharp. We could try to build a scale without octave equivalency, but then we have to get into tuning theory, and this was supposed to be a scale theory video, so we're gonna say octaves are fine. We're just concerned with perfect fifths and fourths. And we don't even really have to worry about fourths. Like, let's take our G sharp from earlier. If we add the note a perfect fifth above that, we get D sharp, but thanks to octave equivalency, adding this G sharp gives us this one for free, which is a perfect fourth above the D sharp. This means that for every perfect fifth in your scale, you also have a fourth, and vice versa, so we only have to count one, and since fifths are a little more consonant, I'm just gonna look at those. So, okay, rules set. Now, which scale has the fewest perfect fifths? Well, depends how you define scales, but if you use my preferred definition, which is just any collection of notes with a root, then the answer is this. So that's boring. We can try refining our scale definitions, say by using William Zeitler's version, which says a scale can't have gaps larger than a major third, but that just leaves us with this, which isn't much better. The problem is that the question encourages us to use as few notes as possible, since we start with 0 perfect fifths and then every note we add runs the risk of creating one and ruining everything. But using so few notes leaves us with something that doesn't feel very scale-like in practice, even if it technically fits our definition. So is there a way around that? Well, I'm glad you asked, because yes, of course there is. Imperfections. This term has been used to mean a lot of different things in music, but the version I'm talking about comes again from William Zeitler. Basically, it's a way of measuring how many perfect fifths are missing from a scale. In Zeitler's system, a note in a scale is an imperfection if the scale doesn't also contain the note of perfect fifth above it. So if we looked at, say, the major scale, we'd see that of the 7 unique notes, 6 of them can be paired with their perfect fifth in the scale, leaving just one imperfection here. On the other hand, something like melodic minor has 4 perfect fifths, leaving us with 3 imperfections, making it a less perfect scale. There's only one scale with no imperfections, the chromatic scale, which is just the name we give to the collection with all the notes. Every other scale has at least one, but I'm pretty sure we can do better than that. Looking at it in terms of imperfections means we no longer have an incentive to use fewer notes because adding them increases our score as long as those notes don't make perfect fifths. So with that in mind, let's reframe our initial question. Instead of asking which scale has the fewest perfect fifths, let's ask which one has the most imperfections. Now, I could just run some numbers and tell you the answer, but it's more fun if we try to build it ourselves. First things first, we're gonna need a root. We've been using G sharp, so let's stick with that. Now, adding this note immediately rules out a couple others, like we know our scale can't have a D sharp now because then our G sharp has a perfect fifth, which means it's wasted. But if we can't have D sharp, then suddenly A sharp becomes really tempting. After all, it's a perfect fifth above a note that we already know we're leaving out, so it doesn't have anything to spoil. However, it can still be spoiled by adding an F, so now we have to leave that out too, which means C becomes cheaper to add, which then rules out G, and if we keep going like this, we wind up with... God damn it. So what we have here is a very well-known scale in music theory circles called the whole tone scale because all the notes are a whole step apart. Now, don't get me wrong, the whole tone scale is a fascinating structure and it's been used to great effect by all sorts of artists from classical composers to jazz soloists, and sure, it has 6 imperfections, which is more than any other scale in standard tuning, but I wanted to find something new. The whole tone scale already gets enough attention, it doesn't need this title too, so I'm gonna do what every good theorist does when presented with a boring answer. I'm gonna change the question. The whole tone scale has 6 notes, but many of the most popular Western scales have 7, so what if we make that a requirement? What's the least perfect scale with 7 notes? Well, that's a harder question to answer, or I guess it's easy, there is none. First place is a 21-way tie. Turns out throwing away the correct answer makes finding the best wrong answer tricky, but that's okay, we can sort through this. Like I said, there's 21 different 7-note scales that each contain 5 imperfections, but fortunately for us, they all fall into one of 3 groups. The first group works like this. We take our whole tone scale from before, and just add a note into one of these gaps, let's say here. Now, because we'd carefully balanced it such that every missing note was a perfect fifth above and below a note in the scale, this winds up spoiling one of our imperfections and also not being one itself, leaving us with 5 total, but hey, 5 still isn't a bad score. The major scale would kill to have 5 imperfections, or I mean, it probably wouldn't, but Locrian might. Anyway, the whole tone scale has 6 different gaps, each of which we can put a note in, and then there's also the option of making the added note the root, which gives us 7 scales. Our next group is even simpler. Here, check it out. Turns out if we cram 7 notes as close together as we possibly can, only the top 2 wind up perfect. We can rotate this around, shifting some notes from the bottom of the octave to the top, but in all these cases, what we have is a tritone where one side is entirely filled in and the other is completely empty. We can position that tritone in 7 different places in the octave, which gives us 7 more scales for a total of 14. Still, we haven't really found anything interesting, have we? These have all felt pretty obvious, but we're not done yet. We've got one group left, and to find this one, we have to start with that last group. Let's take our string of half steps again, but this time we'll make it so the root is in the center of the bunch. Now, where are our perfect fifths? Well, the top of this bottom part is the root of one of them, and the bottom of this top part is the fifth of the other. But the rest of the scale is just a mess of half steps, so we can take these tips and slide them towards each other, and they just shift which note they're paired with. We've broken 2 perfect fifths, but created 2 more, so we're left with something that still has 7 notes, still has 5 imperfections, and actually looks like a real scale. It even meets Zeitler's definition. And just like before, any of these notes could be the root, which makes another family of 7 different scales for a full 21. I should note, for the record, that this isn't the first time I've seen this scale. It was actually sent to me on Twitter a while back by a composer named Petra, who'd been playing around in a similar area, and decided to call it the crater scale in honor of this big hole in the middle. Given that, as far as I know, it doesn't have any other name, and given that crater scale sounds awesome, I think I'm gonna call it that too. Now, technically speaking, any of these scales are equally good answers. I mean, they all have 5 imperfections. But I think the point of thought experiments like this is to find something exciting, and by far the most exciting result for me is this last one. The whole tone scale has been thoroughly explored, so adding a note in the middle of it still puts us in familiar territory, and while I'd probably argue that a string of half steps spanning a tritone does technically count as a scale, it's certainly not much of one. But the crater scale? That feels like a real thing. It has a structure to it, it's not immediately obvious, and most of all, it just sounds cool. It feels like something you could actually write music with, even though it's incredibly imperfect. Speaking of perfection, I made a video about what I think is the perfect TV show intro over on Nebula. Boom, nailed that transition. Anyway, if you've ever wondered why I use a penny farthing bicycle to represent the number 6, or if you already know, then you might want to check out my video on the British cult classic The Prisoner. It's one of my favorite shows, and when Nebula started a series about the best TV intro sequences, I knew which one I needed to talk about. Wait, I should probably explain. Nebula is a streaming service launched by some of YouTube's top educational creators, including Braincraft, Polyphonic, and H-Bomber Guy, and for some reason, I'm involved too? I still don't know why they let me tag along, but anyway, we built it as a place to experiment outside of YouTube's restrictive algorithm-driven ecosystem, and one of the coolest experiments so far is a series called Working Titles, where each episode a different creator breaks down their favorite TV intro sequence. It's fascinating to see how everyone approaches the problem. Patrick Willems did a shot-by-shot breakdown of the 90s X-Men cartoon, Polyphonic talked about the themes of the Game of Thrones sequence, and Mia Mulder looked at how Battlestar Galactica's opening set it apart from other sci-fi shows. And me, well, I talked about dichotomies. A lot. It's kind of my thing. If you want to check out my Prisoner video, or the rest of Working Titles, or the rest of Nebula for that matter, we've partnered with CuriosityStream to work out an amazing deal. If you sign up for CuriosityStream with the link in the description, not only do you get a free month of premium access to their whole library of amazing documentaries, but as long as you remain a member there, you also get a Nebula account completely free. No additional charges, ever. And since CuriosityStream has annual plans starting under $20 a year, that's a lot of great educational content for not a lot of money. And hey, thanks for watching, thanks to our Patreon patrons for making these videos possible, and extra special thanks to this video's featured patron, Susan Jones. If you want to help out and get some sweet perks like sneak peeks of upcoming episodes, there's a link to our Patreon on screen now. You can also join our mailing list to find out about new episodes, like, share, comment, subscribe, and above all, keep on rockin'.